Good evening. In 2014, a Salafi jihadist militant group drove Iraqi forces out of key cities. Next, they targeted Syria. In less than 3 years, ISIS, ISIL, Daesh, Islamic State, whatever you call them, have spread their tentacles to 18 countries. It was no surprise that they would target South Asia, home to 40% of the world's Muslim population next. The ISIS declared war. It gave notice repeatedly. And yet, governments in the region failed to stop it in its tracks. On Gravitas tonight, we bring you special reports on the spread of ISIS in South Asia and ask, can governments end blame games and act together to stop this global terror machine? I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. First up, the headlines. France on terror alert after 2 school students shoot dead their headmaster in Grasse, leave 8 people injured. In Paris, a letter bomb explodes at the IMF office, injuring 1 person. Two federal judges block US President Donald Trump's revised travel ban. He calls it unprecedented judicial overreach. No populist revolt. The Dutch give a fractured mandate. Incumbent Prime Minister Mark Rutte cobbles a coalition to remain in power. Anti-EU, anti-Muslim Wilders come second. CCTV images and post-mortem report confirm the worst fears of the family of the British tourist raped and murdered in Goa. The accused confesses. And the world's largest oil exporter strengthens ties with the second largest economy. Saudi Arabia signs deals worth $65 billion with China. Let's start with India. There have been recurrent reports about the Islamic State attempting to establish a presence in India since mid-2014. In the Mumbai suburb of Thane in particular. Now reports say that the National Investigation Agency or the NIA is establishing the Islamic State links of 75 individuals held in jails all over the country. Let's bring you these numbers. The largest number, 21, currently in prison in Kerala, followed by Telangana, which has 16 ISIS-related prisoners, 9 in Karnataka, 8 in Maharashtra, 6 in Madhya Pradesh, and 6 other states making up the balance. This is the ISIS presence in the country presently. But latest reports suggest that these numbers could soon go up. The NIA has launched a manhunt for 6 individuals who have disappeared after their names turned up during investigations relating to sending and receiving funds on behalf of the Islamic State. At least 3 of them are said to be in Syria. Islamic State links in India are spreading, and this is proof. The NIA has inquired, and those inquiries have linked them to a man called Adnan Hassan Damodi. Damodi was deported from the UAE last year for spreading Islamic State ideology. He's accused of funding no less than 3 attempts by some Hyderabad youth to go to Syria. He is from the Bhatkal in Karnataka. In fact, Indian intelligence agencies believe that the Islamic State's recruiters are operating in Mangalore, which is also in Karnataka. And we are being joined by Mr. Chaudhary, who's a former IB person. In fact, he is with us, I'm told. Mr. Chaudhary, good evening. Welcome to Gravitas. How deep do you think has ISIS penetrated in India, and is their presence still sporadic in the country?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me in WION. My name is Sarwarjahan Chaudhary. I'm a retired army officer from Bangladesh Army, and I'm stationed in Dhaka, Bangladesh. And I write opinion pieces on security and terrorism in South Asia. So obviously there are interesting developments when it comes to the spread of ISIS in South Asia. Like you said, that we are hearing news that there are people being found out by the intelligence and security agencies across South Asia who are suspectedly linked to ISIS. On the other hand, very interestingly, if you look at the ISIS heartland in northern Iraq and in eastern Syria, they are in a retreat, and they have lost thousands of square kilometers of area to various opposing forces, some to the Syrian government forces, some to Iraqi government forces. So their physical occupation of territory is reducing. And we also heard news from their self-proclaimed caliph, Baghdadi, who said that, the news came like this, that he has said to the foreign fighters who has been fighting with the ISIS that we have lost the Iraqi part of the Daesh, so you wrap up and either you blow yourself up or you go back to your own country and fight there. So that defeat in Syria, in northern Iraq, and one more job is yet to be done by the Iraqi forces in terms of capturing the western part of Mosul.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right, right. Major Chaudhry, in fact, let's focus on the ISIS presence in Bangladesh before we take this further. A study by the Bangladesh police reveals that social media has become a key instrument in the radicalization of the youth. WION's Bangladesh Bureau Chief Saad Hamadi filed this report from Dhaka.
Police in Bangladesh say more than 80% of arrested militants had been radicalized through social media, and 56% of them were largely influenced by jihadi materials available on the internet. The survey carried out by the Bangladesh police covered 250 suspected militants picked up in the last 2 years. Clearly, the social media and the digital platforms have become a swift and a secure mode for communication that has its incentives and disincentives. Much of the terrorist recruitments and communication in recent times have built on this foundation that have led them reach out to a wider population, particularly the youths around the world. That is also the reason we see an evolution in the functions of the Islamic State from that of its predecessors like Al-Qaeda. Investigators said the Dhaka cafe attack terrorists were adept at social media. They used the messaging app Threema for all internal communication. In fact, police said 40% of those arrested also used Telegram, WeChat, ChatSecure, and Facebook Messenger to communicate among themselves.
Research conducted by police headquarters, it shows that that out of 250, more than 82% they use online on social media for radicalization and the recruitment of the new extremists. So that's very alarming for us. That's why we have taken a lot of measures, including the strengthening cooperation between the global and regional partners. The cyber world, the Facebook or something else, that is also a virtual world. And if you are going to open an account, definitely you have the right to express your opinion, but definitely you don't have the right to mislead something, or you cannot upload something which may create confusion or which may may be the probable cause of law and order deterioration.
The Bangladesh police has now sought help from Facebook to verify the antecedents of Bangladeshis registering on the social media with national ID and passport details.
And Saad Hamadi, who filed that report, is with us live this evening. Saad, lone wolf sympathizers have been active on social media in Bangladesh as well, and they're much harder to track, I understand. Is there a sense that the Bangladesh police may have woken up too late to this threat?
Falki, just to give you an update, since last evening, the police have been conducting raids in Chittagong area of Bangladesh, where they have carried out an operation called Assault 16, in which 4 suspected militants were killed. And the operation also found out a lot of live bombs from the area, showing once again the police's actions, the preemptive response that they have been making since July. Now, that goes to show that the government has responded. I don't know how late that would be called, because since July, when the major terrorist attack took place last year, since then the government has maintained a very cautious, preemptive approach to thwart any subversive activities that can lead to major terrorist attacks in the country. That also kind of shows that there are sleeper cells or other terrorist networks active in the country who have been planning attacks, who have the possession of arms as well as explosives that are being recovered by the police. Now, what's also to be noted over here in terms of the presence of IS or ISIS, as it's mentioned, the government maintains that there is no presence of IS, or they don't have any evidence of the Islamic State's presence in the country. Now, when they say that, my conversation with government leaders and representatives suggest or indicate the government's version as saying that there is no direct physical presence of any foreign individuals or national who represents the Islamic State in Bangladesh. But the modus operandi of IS has changed, and not just changed, the modus operandi of Islamic State, not just for any terrorist outfit, has changed in course of time. And now the cyberspace has been taking a lot of those communications to a different level in the virtual space. Recruitments or operations don't have to be carried out by foreign nationals. Given the fact that IS has originated from Iraq and Syria, this claim by the government of not having any presence of any IS leaders from Iraq or Syria or any other country does not quite stand out when you have lone wolf attacks like you have mentioned, who are influenced or inspired by the Islamic State. The videos, the messages, the jihadi contents available on the internet are being enough to inspire these individuals to become radicalized. Now that needs a very concerted effort from not just the government, the society as well, to kind of bring this situation into control.
Right. We are also being joined by Rohan Gunaratne, who's a strategic affairs expert. Good evening, sir. How serious is the situation in Bangladesh? Some reports say that recruits include youth from power elites. How are authorities dealing with the spread of ISIS in the country?
Since the Holy Artisan attack, the police and RAB and the intelligence services have been very effective in the fight against terrorism. They have killed the leadership, they have captured very important members and supporters, but IS is still active here, and it will take a long time for the IS network to be entirely dismantled. Even if they dismantle it, IS is operating through the cyberspace. They can quickly radicalize and recruit people and get them to do attacks. And that is why it is so important what Bangladesh is doing now. It is going to the community, it is engaging the religious leaders, it is engaging the schools, universities. So that program should continue.
Right, we spoke to Mr. Gunaratne, and the Bangladesh link is very, very crucial to understand the Islamic State's growing influence in India as well. In fact, West Bengal is the soft underbelly through which the Islamic State is entering India. Murshidabad district bordering Bangladesh is a corridor used to infiltrate into India. Murshidabad and adjoining Malda are also major points for the distribution of fake Indian currency notes made in Bangladesh. And this man on your screens, Mohammad Masiuddin alias Musa, was picked up from Birbhum last July. He told the police that the Islamic State was readying plans for major strikes on targets in India. One target was the Mother's House in Kolkata, the global headquarters of the Missionaries of Charity, where Mother Teresa is buried. It was frequented by foreigners and therefore a prime target. Musa himself was planning lone wolf strikes in Kolkata, and he was taking instructions from Shafi Armar, the India head of the Islamic State in Syria, also from the Jamaatul Mujahideen in Bangladesh. So this is how the larger picture looks. We have Arun Chaudhary with us here on Gravitas. Mr. Chaudhary, I want to ask you this. How serious is the problem of ISIS in India as we speak, sir?
As far as the ISI goes, the thing is to worry, and I'm sure all the security agencies and the intelligence agencies in India know this threat. It is real, but there is no need to panic, because most of our security forces, do have the wherewithal and are clued up on the growing network of the ISIS in India. The recent incident in Lucknow, when Saifullah was killed in an encounter, and the people who got arrested, shows that the network is trying to spread itself and do terrorist acts wherever it can do it possibly. Now, if you see what happened in the Ujjain train blast, it was planning and it was executed very meticulously. Now, if you compare it with the cafe incident in Dhaka also, it was planned and executed very meticulously in Dhaka also. So the modus operandi both in Dhaka and in the train blast in Ujjain is practically the same, that a group is activated, the group starts acting, but they are all local people. So what is the most dangerous part of ISI? Activating the homegrown militants who are already available here, whether it is in Kerala, whether it is in Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal, Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra. So these are the areas where we have seen that there are organizations which have erstwhile been a part of the
So I'm sorry to interrupt here, Mr. Chaudhary. You are saying that the ISIS is tapping into terror modules that already exist. If a foreign outfit can penetrate to this level, identify these individuals and reactivate, as you say, these modules, why can't security forces in the country do the very same to neutralize these people?
No, the security forces are doing whatever they can to neutralize these people, and a lot of people have been caught also. In January, people have been caught by the NIA. In December, people have been caught by the NIA, and whatever is, we are getting information and intelligence from these people, they point out that the growing militancy or the growing influence of the ISIS is on a particular youth who are well connected with the social media, and they have a perceived sense of persecution. And that's how they translate into becoming a militant and doing things for the ISIS.
So some would say at some level this is a failure on the part of the system to not be able to address these concerns that these people have, to not be able to reach out to them. But there's also a sense, Saad Hamadi, many feel that governments are wary of admitting that there is homegrown terror. They do not want to admit, they do not want to concede that at some level these terrorists do operate, and foreign agencies like the ISIS have come and taken root.
Behind the IS earlier.
This is a question for Saad, sir. Saad Hamadi with us from Dhaka.
But it is a Dhaka.
Okay, can you repeat the question?
The question I'm asking, Saad, is this: is there a feeling that governments try to brush these threats under the carpet, that they do not want to admit that there is an element of homegrown terror that that organizations like the ISIS are tapping into?
What we learned so far from the government and investigators is the fact that, as opposed to the label IS, the militants that investigators have found or exposed in recent times are involved with an outfit called Neo-JMB. What's also surprising here to note is the fact that there has not been any statement from anyone identifying voluntarily as a member of Neo-JMB other than the police saying it. Now that comes as a surprise when we see individuals with banners and also the styles of those that have been carried out so far by the IS. So that is very contradicting. Now, my interview with Professor Gunaratne previously have also showed the fact that there are individuals who are carrying out attacks on behalf of IS, but not necessarily are affiliated with Neo-JMB because that does not have any organizational existence as such. That is the same for IS as well. Given in the space of cyber, the internet, that you don't really need a physical presence of any individual. Well, about your question on the government's maintaining that there is no mention of the IS's existence, Gunaratne says that there is a possibility or a fear of foreign intervention if the government admits to the fact that there is any presence of IS. But that's not just the case in Bangladesh. Across the continent, we see the same maintenance by the state authorities who say that there is no presence of IS directly, but that's not the most important issue right here. What we see here are elements activated or troops activated by IS from wherever across the world in these countries, in India, Bangladesh and Pakistan and other countries we are seeing where IS has been launching attacks.
Right. Let's in fact turn our focus to Pakistan as well. 16th February 2017, exactly a month back, a suicide bomber entered the Lal Shahbaz Qalandar Shrine in Sindh and detonated explosives at a gathering. 88 people died there, more than 200 were injured. It was an ISIS attack, one in a series of many attacks and one of the deadliest in years in Pakistan. The military then launched a crackdown and reportedly killed 39 suspected militants. ISIS has claimed responsibility for attacks in Balochistan and Quetta in the past few months. The organization is believed to have forged close ties with local outfits like the Lashkar-e-Jhangvi. Islamabad, though, insists that most of these militants infiltrate from Afghanistan and hostile powers support them to foment trouble. WION's Pakistan Bureau Chief Taha Siddiqui sent us this report earlier today.
The Islamic State has rapidly started growing its influence in Pakistan and Afghanistan. We've seen a number of attacks happening over the last year, which were claimed by Islamic State itself. Now we know that in Afghanistan, they are taking sort of an advantage of the already deteriorating law and order situation. In Pakistan, they're sort of partnering with local militants which are escaping from the Pakistani military's operations and rebranding themselves as Islamic State. So a lot of Pakistani Taliban Sunni extremist groups which share the ideology with Islamic State are joining their ranks. It's not actually people coming from the Islamic State here, as intelligence reports suggest, that it's the locals here rebranding themselves as Islamic State.
Right, so locals rebranding themselves as the Islamic State. Taha Siddiqui also joining us live this evening. Taha, how do you see the Pakistan state's preparedness, the government's preparedness in dealing with this new threat, whether it's the ISIS that's coming, infiltrating into Pakistan, or local bodies affiliating themselves to ISIS? How is the government and the security agencies, how are they dealing with this?
Well, from what we see, the Pakistani state and the authorities are quite serious in tackling these sort of militants, the Pakistani Taliban or the Islamic State, or, for example, in your intro, as you mentioned, the Lashkar-e-Jhangvi, which is affiliated with Islamic State. But the problem comes when these very militant groups, they move back and forth, especially like as mentioned also by Islamabad government here, that they operate out of Afghanistan and the tribal belt, and the border is quite porous. So they keep moving back and forth, so it's hard to catch them in that sense. Also, another issue is the fact that in Pakistan, we do know that the Pakistani state allows sanctuaries for some militants which are pro-Pakistan, for example, the ones focused on Afghanistan, the ones focused on sort of Sunni extremist groups, the ones focused on Kashmir. So those militant groups operate quite freely, and because of the close relations, because the same sort of like, the ideology is same, it's a little different. For example, Islamic State, or some of them are anti-Pakistan, but the others are pro-Pakistan, but they have the same networks, they have the same families, same geographical space that they share in Balochistan, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, in the tribal belt, in Karachi city. So because of that, because there's no clampdown on one element, which is considered, as many analysts call them, the good militants in Pakistan's sort of strategic assets, those, and there's no action against them. And because of that, these bad militants or these anti-Pakistan militants, they also get away seeking refuge with the same networks, and those networks facilitate them also. So in that sense, the Pakistan government, the bad militants, but as long as the good militants exist, the bad militants will continue to flourish, sort of.
Absolutely. The good Taliban, bad Taliban logic that Pakistan has been questioned on various counts in the past as well. Arun Chaudhary, Afghanistan has externalized the Taliban problem. They're doing the same with ISIS, saying that we have nothing to do with this. These are people who come from outside. Pakistan is doing the very same thing, denying that there may be some element of homegrown terror. While all these arguments are politically expedient, how damaging is it in the long run when ISIS repeatedly dares governments that we are setting our eyes on the subcontinent, we are going to come to South Asia, and yet governments are indulging in just a blame game and not doing much?
Well, as far as the IS goes and its spread in India is concerned, what you have said is partly correct, that they want a spread in our country. But the problem is not that spread. As far as the homegrown militants which I had talked about, basically the IS is trying to get to those people who can act. Earlier, the IS wanted recruits from here. Now, the recruits were from educated, tech-savvy people who went and fought alongside with the IS in the war there. But today, they want, as earlier also, that there should be some terrorist incidents which should happen in India. But now that can be done by a lone wolf or by a group as it is operating here. And I feel that the groups active in certain parts of the country have to be tracked. There is one section in Kashmir, you see that after every Friday prayer, you have IS flags coming out. Now those are, and today what one of the videos which have been taken out, that again the ploy of Islamic fight in Kashmir has been played up. Now this is a ploy which is coming from across the border. So as far as Kashmir is concerned, as far as mainland IS organizations or IS incidents are concerned, it is two different things. As far as the country's security agencies and intelligence agencies are concerned, they are well equipped and well linked with each other from the center to the states where this is spreading.
Right. Saad Hamadi, you've been speaking to experts. Do they share what many others have also said, that expanding into South Asia is critical for the survival of ISIS as it is more and more pushed to the wall in Syria and Iraq?
Absolutely, Palki. From the experts I've spoken to, IS is spreading out to not just, given the fact that they're losing their grounds in Iraq and Syria, they're not just spreading out to the Europe and West, but they're also making their foray into the subcontinent and in South Asia. So for South Asia, Pakistan, India remain a very fertile ground for all these activities that they have been carrying out elsewhere, and for their agenda to carry on. Now, Palki, to also point out would be the fact that the government in Bangladesh, when they mentioned about
Right, we'll try and reconnect with Saad, but if I could put the same question to Taha Siddiqui. Taha, this is a ready breeding ground. 240 million Muslims in this region, 40% of the world's Muslim population, and this had to be the favorite hunting ground of ISIS, and that's exactly what it's happening. And some would even say, go as far as saying that the governments in this region were caught napping even after repeated warnings, repeated notices given by the ISIS that this is where they're heading next.
Well, we've been seeing that the Islamic State has been talking about that, and sort of there is a bit of an exaggeration in that sort of claim that they will come here in the subcontinent and establish, because they face resistance from the Afghan Taliban, from Al-Qaeda, which are already here, which have Arab fighters, Central Asian fighters, which came in the 80s and settled here. But although because of the fact that they're from the same origins, the Arab background or the Central Asian background, so that might be able to facilitate them in sort of entering into Pakistan or Afghanistan. But one thing that we do know and has been happening for the last 3-4 years is the fact that a large number of fighters from Pakistan have gone to these areas, to the Islamic State group. People from Lahore, families have moved, families from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, from the tribal belt. And these families now, because of the fact that we see the Islamic State sort of on receding in those areas, we have reports of them coming back into the country. And then when they come back into the country, they bring the same ideology, they try to influence their families, people around them. And because of that, that's one thing that the government isn't really monitoring as to who is going there and who's coming back. We've heard of funerals happening in Pakistan of fighters whose bodies were brought back from the Islamic State area, and those funerals were attended by a lot of people. So that sort of radicalization is what something the government is missing on also. And this is mostly in urban-based populations, where in mainstream Pakistan, where these families have gone to join the Islamic State group, and now many of them are returning back, given the fact that we're seeing sort of the Islamic State retreating in the Middle East.
Right. Arun Chaudhary, some of the experts I was speaking to were of the view that ISIS in this South Asian region has local characteristics, but it is connected with an organization that has, quote-unquote, global ambitions. Do you believe that South Asian nations can come together and think globally, act locally, as they say, to fight this menace, or is that wishful thinking at this point?
Basically, I would say that all these organizations do have to come together as far as intelligence sharing on the ISI is concerned. But they have to fight this menace by their own security and intelligence agencies, on their own. It is basically to have a greater knowledge of what they are trying to do next, which will help the security agencies and the intelligence agencies to thwart their actions in the bud, so to say. So what one of your speakers had just said is the Indian state, the Indian intelligence agencies and the security agencies are doing a lot to de-radicalize, and people have realized in areas that the IS in its war which was going on in the Middle East basically brutalized the entire action, and from that the people have been disillusioned. And so de-radicalization is one of the things which is going on a big scale, silently, and it has helped a lot of people to stay away from such an ideology in our country.
Right, Arun Chaudhary, I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks very much for joining us. Let me also thank Saad, Hamadi and Taha. I'll request you to stay with us. We're taking up another story from Pakistan. We are heading into a very short break at this point. When we come back, another discussion and much more news. Do stay with us.